Hi, it's Moonkitty with an Ayas, and I'm about to make a terrible mistake. Alternatively, it's Moonkitty with an Ayas, and I hope you know what you're about to get into. We get a whole lot of conflicting information around here. For example, Yellowfang was exiled for the death of 2 kits. In Into the Wild, we're told that Broken Star killed them in too early warrior training, which makes perfect sense for the story and the plot of the book, but in Yellowfang's Secret, we learn that a fox killed them. Which of these stories should we be taking seriously, and which one is canon? The Warrior Cats Wiki considers Yellowfang's Secret canon, but lists both series. But then, what about Broken Star's confession to killing these kits and blaming Yellowfang in Into the Wilds? This is an incredibly important scene from the first book, and it's the first book of the entire series. Should we not be taking that element seriously? And Yellowfang's Secret, and even more so Blue Star's Prophecy, are books that are essentially retellings of things that we already know about, but with extra detail. And a lot of these details are inconsistent. Now, these 2 books and Crooked Star's Promise all take place around the same time, so there's lots of little inconsistencies between them. Not that who was which background cat's apprentice really matters to begin with, but it's just a lot of timeline mistakes that don't matter. We have other issues, though, like, for example, Thistleclaw was considered by Blue Star to be a good warrior, but a little bit too fight-happy in Forest of Secrets, which is a main series book. While in Blue Star's Prophecy, he seems like a mess, but not exactly the same character. And then jump to Omen of the Stars, suddenly he's a Dark Forest cat, and then we learn he was trained there in Crooked Star's Promise, giving us another confusing angle on the same character. And heck, if we don't have 1,500 issues when it comes to normal things like pelt colors, the character might be called Pale in the Moonlight without actually being pale, or mistakenly called Dark Ginger once, while his cream-colored sister is called Grey, and have it still be sewn into their character descriptions in the wiki for all of time. But to get to the point, I'd like to propose a sort of information hierarchy. But just so you know, this is my opinion, and if the Warrior Cats Wiki, or you, or someone with a blog wants to take all of the information that we get, mix it into a pot, and just decide it's all canon, that's fine with me too. I don't really mind. If there is a contradiction, like with Yellowfang getting kicked out of ShadowClan, the media on the highest point on the list should be the one considered canon. At the top there would be the main series books, as these are the core of Warrior Cats, and their information is the most important, meaning in the case of Yellowfang, the kits were killed by Broken Star and not a fox. Then, under there, we consider the super editions and the novellas, where we can accept at the very least that the kits' names were Marigold Kit and Mint Kit, but we'll disregard the fox thing because we already know how the kits died based on the events of Into the Wild. We need Broken Star to have killed the kits for Into the Wild to work. I would suggest the next thing down are the mangas, because they're surprisingly non-contradictory and nothing important causes any issues. They actually fill in the gaps and tell the stories pretty believably without causing any problems. We can take from the mangas that Hawkfrost and Mothwing had a brother named Tadpole without it creating any issues or contradictions. One more step down is most of the field guides, which are essentially entirely supplemental information. And for such short books, they have a lot of problems. For a really quick example, on page 66 and 67 of Code of the Clans, Squirrelflight talks about vigils and mentions her own when she never had one. Another step down is we're inputting specifically just the Warrior Cats Ultimate Guidebook, which, while it's filled with pretty pictures and is generally a fun read, it's also filled to the brim with issues. Like, it takes Brambleclaw's fake story about how Hollyleaf killed Ashfur and presents it as fact. People already mistake the story for the truth, so it really doesn't help putting it in a field guide, especially when we got exactly how Hollyleaf killed him at an earlier point. And after that, information found in the Warriors app, which gives us a few bits of useless information like Firestar's mother's name. It's more supplemental information like the field guides, and there isn't much to it. And then 7 steps down is Word of God, and first I should explain something. Victoria Holmes is no longer working on the main series books. Tons of people don't get this. She made the plots and wrote chunks of the first 4 series, but for the second book of Dawn of the Clans and on, along with Visions of Shadows, she had no involvement. Her previous place in the Warriors series is now being filled by quote-unquote a team that we don't know anything about. The only involvement she still has, from what I can tell, is writing the novellas. Now, we have 2 sources for Word of God. We have Victoria Holmes and Kate Carey. Cherith used to talk about the series in author chats, but I don't think she has any kind of public forum where she answers questions like the other 2. Vicky used to answer questions on her Facebook page, while Kate Carey answers questions on the Blog Clan spoiler pages. Recently, Kate Carey said that Thornclaw and Blossomfall are going to be mates and have kittens, but until the next book is out, we're not going to really know. We're also told that moon is a sacred word in an author chat, but we've had 3 or more instances of it used since then, so we can assume that the name Moon is fair game, even though 8 years ago we were told it wasn't. If we only had one author, I would probably at least put Word of God above the field guides, but honestly the information we get from the authors is very often contradictory, not only with the books, but with each other, and when it isn't, it's silly information like the name of some dead kit, and, speaking of which. Under this Word of God section is anything we get from Sue Suzanne. Who is Sue Suzanne? I just found out myself. To be honest, I had no idea either. I noticed recently that the Warrior Cats wiki, which I still use occasionally despite my problems with it, was suddenly edited with a bunch of Cloudtail's siblings, and decided to check the source. Thanks to a couple helpful kids on the unofficial Warrior Cats forums and a couple links on the Chinese Warrior Cats wiki, I found out that Sue Susan is a superfan who apparently proofread some of the novellas and is now answering questions instead of Vicky on Vicky's Facebook page. She also has a series called Missing Kits, which detail missing kits. Kits that didn't have fathers, or kits that were never named in the early books. And some of these posts are fine. Like Cloudtail's siblings, there's no big deal there. It doesn't change anything to give Cloudtail a bunch of siblings, and so taking it doesn't hurt anything. But then we've got other things she says which are a little bit questionable, like she's given us Whitestorm as Ashburn, Ferncloud's father. This is a theory that floats around a lot because Whitestorm, being a responsible senior warrior, suggested Bluestar make 2 kits into apprentices when she was having her trust issues in Book 4. The problem with this is the fact that what we see of Whitestorm otherwise, in I think Book 3, 4, and 5, is that he's been pursuing a romantic relationship with Willowpelt, and the implication that he was with Brindleface at some point and is pursuing another mate while his kits are still in the nursery provides some bad implications about the nature of his character. And you could argue, oh, it's Book 1, and early series cats were less human about their relationships. But this information wasn't provided in Book 1 or anywhere in the series. It was provided this September along with our current understanding of Warrior Cats, and not within the first series beta version of the Warrior Cats world. Now, what I would say we do with the information that Sue Susan is giving us is to just not consider any blatantly contradicting information, but also to not consider any information that would change a character or story element, because some of it does. And I would consider her information canon only if it has no effect on the world. In the end, these are seemingly just her ideas that got the thumbs up from Vicky. Vicky says herself that she is almost always right in her introduction post, but honestly, this entire thing rubs me the wrong way. And at the very bottom of my list, under everything, is information appearing on family trees in the timeline on the Warrior Cats website. Just throw it all away. I'd imagine that timeline and that family tree was made by a HarperCollins intern who kind of opened up the book a little bit to see what the cats' names were and randomly connected them to each other. And obviously, when the Warrior Cats movie comes out, it's not going to have anything to do with anything. It's just going to be in its own pile, here's the Warrior Cats stuff, and here's the Warrior Cats movie stuff. It's just going to be completely separate, and hopefully the Warrior Cats wiki understands that and doesn't try to tie all the movie stuff into its pages. That would be an adventure, but not something that I would put past them in the slightest. Oh god, what if all their pictures got upgraded to portraits in the movie? Anyways, that's just my opinion. Just what I think of it. Feel free to use the comment section to tell me why I'm wrong and not, make any strange mocking videos about why I'm wrong and then send them to me anonymously on Tumblr. That would be a little bit strange, I would say.